Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. You're listening to the Just Thinking Show, brought to you by the Islamic Vibes podcast, and I'm your host, Majid. The Islamic Vibes podcast is available on all popular podcast platforms and on my Path to Revival YouTube channel. And if you find our content beneficial, please share it with your family and friends. And it goes without saying, please don't forget to subscribe and to follow the Islamic Vibes podcast. Okay, so on to today's show. I'm joined by my co-host, Brother Afi. Assalamu alaikum, bro. How's it going?
Walaikum salam. Alhamdulillah, all good. How about yourself?
I can't complain, bro. I can't complain. It was snowing today, so I don't know how it is up them ends. But it was snowing quite heavily. I'm not checked now. Kids enjoying it a bit. So yeah, it's been one of those days.
Yeah, it's same here. It's kind of like any plans of travel were ruined about 11 o'clock this morning when it started snowing, and it's still it stopped, but it just blanket of whiteness out there.
Yeah, subhanAllah, man. You know, I think with snow, it is really something which I like, but I think the best thing about it is to be in a warm home and look out of your window.
Well, I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. And you remember our little friend Mohammed in Mecca? You know, he says to me, you know, often when I speak to him, he says, I just envy you guys having experienced snow, because all they've done is just hear about it. They've heard about it, seen it in pictures, seen it on TV. They don't know what it's like in real life. So perhaps, you know, we don't appreciate the little blessings that we do have.
Yeah, sure, man. I mean, you know, we may envy him that he lives in Mecca, and he envies us that we have snow in there. Like, who's got the better deal? Let's see in there. But listen, let's crack on with today's topic, right? And you know, this is the Just Thinking Show, and today the topic is going to be concerning death. Okay, now that might be, you know, something with people who are listening thinking, whoa, this is going to be some serious stuff. It is going to be serious, and it's not something which you can try to avoid. So, you know, in the West, it's a taboo topic. It's one of those that no one really wants to talk about. But we're going to talk about it today. And the reason why I want to talk about this is I saw a report on the internet, right? A story that there's a company called Alcor. Okay, it's a firm based in Scottsdale, Arizona. And they offer cryonic, if that's the way to pronounce it, cryonic freezing post-mortem. And what they say is that they're going to be able to basically bring you back to life at a later date, right? So what they're saying is cryonics is the practice of preserving life by pausing the dying process using sub-freezing temperatures with the intent of restoring good health with medical technology in the future. So basically what they're saying is, look, at this moment in time, we don't have the cure for death, right? But in the future, as things develop, we'll find this cure. So now I think it was about $600. I think it might be $600 a month. I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember what the fees were. Obviously, I'm not interested in taking up their service, but so you know, you pay, and then in the future, whether it's, I mean, I don't know what their estimated time is, a couple of years or 50 years, whatever, but they will bring you back to life once they have found the cure to death. So first of all, bro, what's your thoughts on this? I mean, it's something which you've come across before. In the past, I just thought it was like in the sci-fi movies and stuff, but to actually know that people are actually doing this is pretty crazy. Yeah. So what's your thoughts on this story, you know, just kick things off?
Well, first of all, I think when you were saying it, I was like, these guys are very, very clever who have done this, because you're right, there is no cure to death. So they promised something to someone. They probably got loads of people bought in. They're going to take their money even after they've died. And who's going to come back asking for a refund?
They ain't going to sue.
No, you don't know what's going to happen to the party or anything. So, you know, it's a win-win situation for them. And then once, you know, the dead person's money's run out, you know, they're gone. So from a business perspective, it's quite smart. But from a reality point of view, I think it just goes to show that there is this deep fear of something which is inevitable. We know it's going to happen. Everyone knows it. From the moment that we've got a sound, we've developed our intellect, started to develop our thinking, we see death around us, we know it's going to happen. And despite, I think we might have touched on this in one of our previous just thinking things, that for something that's definitely going to happen, why don't people put more thought into the consequences of it?
Give it more importance.
You'd want to be damn sure that once you're going to die, that there is not going to be an afterlife if you don't intend to prepare for it, right? Or if you are preparing for an afterlife, you'd want to be sure that there is one, and therefore, you're not holding back in this life. So I find it surprising that for something which is going to happen, you're just accepting what people are telling you, which is, nothing happens. And therefore, as a result, we'll be able to bring you back.
Yeah, no, you're right, bro. And maybe also it's a case where once the person's dead, with the customers to Alcor, is they also maybe some of them, whoever take up the service, realize that in fact, the money that we've accumulated ain't actually going to benefit us anymore, right?
Yeah.
So rather than some next month just spending it in a strip bar or something in Las Vegas, right? Let's just use it on ourselves even after we're dead, right? Because of the chance of being brought to life. But I think, as Muslims, death is something which is actually recommended to think about, as you know, right? It's something which is recommended, whilst in the West, it's something which is seen as, anti-joy. It's seen as something which you don't want to be thinking about, because it's just, why would you even be thinking about it? I remember once years ago, man, this story. There was this guy in Nottingham, and he was selling these. Those days we used to go paintballing and stuff, and he was selling these paintballing tickets, right? And so I started doing a deal with him, and then we did a deal, right? And then I can't remember the exact details, but he said something like, so, your tickets will be sent to your receipt or something next week. So I'm like, yo, listen, at the end of the day, being brought up on the streets kind of thing, it's like, this guy's trying to do one, right? So I was like, let's do it now. What if by next week, you're dead and, or you die, right? Man, you know what? It was crazy. I've never seen someone's expression change as quick as this guy, man. He was like, whoa, wait a minute, man. He goes, wait a minute. He goes, you just killed my day. He said, you've just killed my mood, right? He goes, how can you be talking about death? I was like, well, okay, this has hit this guy hard a bit. So I go, okay, maybe you're ill or something, right? So I try to soften the blow a bit. But the point I'm saying is because really it was like as if the guy was having a great day, and as soon as I told him, and I sort of brought the realization that actually next week you might not be here, mate, right? So, what I mean? I might just be getting robbed off here, right? For him, it was the fact that, how can you be talking about death? So for Muslims, we know that death is part of life, right? Yep. Death is part of life. And, we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that every soul shall taste death, that your life is fixed. And, it's crazy that many of us, sometimes we know about these things. How many of us may go and make ghusl of the deceased, go to the janazah, see the body being lowered in the grave, right? Nothing taken with them. But soon as it's over, we're just back to our day-to-day life, things which, doing things which we even know that actually is not going to benefit us, actually could harm us in the next life. Why do you think that is, bro? The fact that, every Muslim will say, your life is fixed. It's in the hands of Allah. When you're going to die, where you're going to die. It's not going to be a minute late and minute early. And, and all this stuff. When the angel of death comes, there's no escape and all this sort of stuff, right? But we know this information, right? We have this information, but why is it that we can sometimes like bury this on and like give it less priority, whilst with the non-Muslims they may actually, their way of life tells them to avoid thinking like this. Our deen tells us to think about Islam, right, and death, right? So why is it that we ignore these signs and these ayat and these hadith? Why do you think that is, bro?
First of all, I hope you don't mind. I think let's just correct it slightly, right? I think people do think about it, and there's different scenarios and situations where I encourage people to think about it, like the death, like COVID situation. That's constantly on people's minds. And when you're in times of trouble or your family's ill, naturally people will turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even non-Muslims, when they realize that they can't do anything, they decide to go and believe in God all of a sudden. And I think even with Muslims, you see it that they hit a certain age or a certain stage in their life, and then all of a sudden it's like a switch has been turned, where the priority is now on the hereafter rather than now, on the here and now. And at a certain age, and we've been victims to this as well, and probably still are in some cases. And sometimes perhaps we do lose sight, and you get caught up in the day-to-day thing. You're caught up in the rat race. You're caught up in the struggles and the challenges life brings you, whether it's work, etc. You get back from work, you're tired, and then you got your kids to look after. So you've got all these distractions in life, but those distractions tend to take over your life to a certain age, and then after that, whether it's even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this in the Quran as well, about the peak age of 40. And then once you hit that age, all of a sudden you start thinking about the hereafter. You're starting to show your gratitude, and maybe that is linked to the concept of death, because you are now closer to death than you were to
but my point is that even just say pre-40, people know about death. They know about, or they hear all about angel of death and all this sort of Jahannam and stuff like that. So what my question is that, and we're part of this, yeah. So we can speak for ourselves in it. Why is it that even though we have this information, if you want to call it that, about the hereafter and stuff like this, we behave in a way where actually, it's leading us down to the path of Jahannam, even though we know about it. If you know what I'm trying to say. So like what I'm saying is that non-Muslims, for example, they may believe that this is it. They may believe there's no hereafter. The action is going to reflect this. But from a very young age, we're told about Jannah, Jahannam, and these sort of things, right? We're told about don't do this, and do this, and so on. And this is going to give you a reward, this is going to give you punishment. But why is it that even though with all these reminders, these janazas, these constant reminders, I mean, just locally, in the last week, a young 16-year-old girl passed away in the school, local school to here. Actually, I know the family. Another, my friend's grandfather passed away. Another guy I know, I'll mention it to you. Probably even, I think you might remember this person, but his brother passed away, and he was just like maybe just in his late 40s. So this, you're talking about in the span of 1 week, right? These people have passed away, and they all range from young, middle age to elderly people. So everyone's seeing this. We're all seeing this. Everyone knows about this. It's a shock to the community, right? But it could well be that I see this and then I go and open my off license. I see this and I deliberately neglect to pray salah. I see this and then to me, dealing with riba and interest, it doesn't really make too much of a difference, even though I'm seeing all these signs. So what I'm trying to get into your thinking here is that, and get your opinion is, why do you think that even though with all these signs, we sometimes, or a lot of the time, we behave in a way which is in the opposite way we should be? What's your thoughts? Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, no. While you're talking, I'm just thinking actually, what is the cause of that, and how do you articulate it? I think ideas such as death what's going to happen afterwards, accountability, day of judgment. I think people, we grow up with these ideas, but they don't seem to strike or impact someone's emotions to the point whereby they need to behave accordingly, which what you're being told about the hereafter. So is there a lack of understanding in the thought, in the conviction, in the belief on the hereafter, especially when you're surrounded by this constant noise that there is nothing, live for the here and now, and you'll be all right? Could it be that people are telling you, don't worry, Allah is all forgiving, which He is, and may Allah forgive us, that as long as then you repent, and people are intending that, look, we've been caught up in this lifestyle, we're caught up in the dream of this life, and we intend to turn to Allah at a stage. Don't know what that stage is when it comes. I know historically I've said that, I will start praying again, I will. And then tomorrow never comes, as the saying goes. So, could it be that? But the other big thing I think is, and this is just again from my own personal experience, we're being told something by our parents, which we trust. We're being told something at the mosque by the imam, who we trust and we respect. But apart from information, there's nothing else that was given. There was just an expectation that based upon this, I was going to start praying, or based upon this, I was going to start living my life in the mold of what the imam and etc. in the mosque were. Whereas actually what I was being told this in like 5% of my life. But then the other 95% of the time, the school was bringing me up effectively, the social institutions that we go to, like youth clubs and all this kind of stuff, and then the TV, and definitely the education system plays a massive part. All of these institutions are giving me another view on life. So I think Muslims are at a bit of a clash where they hold on to these ideas that are being given to them and intend to shape their behavior around it, but their real influences on life is coming from the other side.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, bro. It's a huge challenge, and but at the same time, also, I think if we can talk in regards to our own experiences, I think what sort of helped me, and I'm sure it's the same for you as well, is actually coming across the idea of Islam in a way where you had to do your own digging, you had to do your own researching, you had to do your own thinking, whilst before it was a case, the mosques, you learn how to speak Arabic in a very parrot fashion way, the Quran, then you obviously you get beaten up. Nowadays that's not the case, but we got some lick shots, and it was like that your mindset was once I finish this Quran, I'm out of here, you know what I mean? So you thought that was your Islam, right? But later in life, we came across ideas about Islam being an intellectual, leadership, Islam being something isn't just like every other religion. It's not a case of just believing in blind faith or just taking it because your parents are saying it. Islam is something which is the truth, and you have to arrive at it yourself. And I think also around that time, Afi, you probably agree with me here. We start coming across even like converts, yeah. So it was a case like before we just thought, Muslims look like us, but when you start coming across, black brothers, white brothers, and they were telling you their story and the struggles that they went through to find the truth, that sort of solidified the idea that, yeah, man, you know what, Islam is something which you can't just inherit. It's a blessing that we're born in a Muslim family, but you got to go on that journey. You got to be convinced. You got to be convinced that there's a Jannah. You got to be convinced there's a Jahannam, right? That after this life, when everything is gone, as a matter of fact, you will be raised with the Creator, right, in front of the Creator. This is something which, if you think about a lot of the things to do with the actions to do with the world, you go to work, what do you get back? You get wealth, right? You do, you get married, you maybe, get some children. But basically, it's like you can sort of measure it. You can see the fruits of your actions whilst you're here. They're very tangible. But when you're talking about Islam, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about in Surah Baqarah, when he talks about the believers are those who believe in the al-ghaib, i.e., what you're doing here is you're basing actions, you're dedicating your life to something which you're not going to see the reality of it until the hereafter. You're not going to see the fruits of your actions until the hereafter. So without going through a certain, methodology of thinking where you're convinced that definitely I know for a shadow of doubt, right? I know as a matter of fact that when I die, I will be resurrected and I will be questioned. And I think that was something which helped me, and I know it helped yourself, and around that time, we sort of came into it together, where it gave us a different viewpoint in life, and I think that's something which is really important as well, because if you just brought up a Muslim because you're in a Muslim household, right, and then you have all the challenges that you mentioned, how is someone going to be behaving as a Muslim? It's going to be very difficult, right?
It is, and again, while you were talking, I was like thinking about, my children and the responsibility I've got towards them, and I think it's fair to say our understanding from Islam came from certain influences throughout life that we came across at the right time, and Allah chooses to guide us in His way. So alhamdulillah, we thank those people that we came across. And that deep understanding about Islam never really came from my parents, but I think the basis definitely did, because if they hadn't given me the basics, I wouldn't have been in the mosque where I saw those people, or I wouldn't have had some interest in Islam where I came from. So that we got to be grateful for what they did give us, but what they gave us was based upon their understanding of the way they were brought up. So we can't be reluctant and say, right, our parents didn't talk to us that much, therefore we turned out all right, and now we can do the same with our kids, because times are different. The attack on Islam is different, the attack on the intellectual aspect of Islam is different. So as parents, we've got a massive responsibility towards our children. And I was just thinking about it, like with my with the eldest of my sons, well, in fact, the little one as well now, when I'm praying, they come and jump all over me. So, and stuff like that. So they see you praying, to the point where my eldest knows the concept of prayer now. So, if he's in the garden and he looks through the neighbor's windows, not that he's, spying on the neighbors or anything, but you'll see the neighbors praying and it'll be like, Baba, look, the neighbors are praying. So he's already got this concept of prayer in his mind. So he's got an interest and he associates it with the people that he looks up to. And, perhaps we were like that at a certain age. So what happens where at this age where the kids have an interest, they observe you've got the right to influence them. So what goes wrong from there to the point whereby they're not doing it? And that's where we need to take a long, hard look at ourselves as Muslims, as uncles, parents, relatives, about how we can influence the youth, because, when they have that confidence in Islam, it will take them further in life. So how do we establish this, so that as their mind develops, we're there to answer the questions that they're inevitably going to have, but that behavior is already there.
Yeah, no, true, bro. I mean, they're the challenges, aren't they? Because, alhamdulillah, it was something which we never sort of bought into. But, when we was at school, for example, and using science, they spoke about Big Bang, right?
Yeah.
But they did, at that time, they kind of spoke of it still in a very academic way. Even though, in all honesty, they might have called it the theory, but they always spoke of it as it's the truth, right?
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it wasn't never really forced it down anyone's throats. But still, at the same time, one could argue that, since we were at school, they were teaching us atheism in a way, right? Because that's what that leads to. But now is a case where I feel that the challenges that the newer generation and the generations coming after them have got is on a next level, bro. Because now it isn't so much that they're talking about atheism, for example, within not atheism, sorry, the Big Bang within a scientific discussion. it's now like a way of life, as a culture, right? Atheism is a culture, so now what they're being forced, and they're being really aggressively, taught the, aggressive liberalism, science is God, basically, so, every religion, is secondary to science. Science is the truth. Science is the arbitrator. Science is the highest standard. So definitely in a situation like this, when your children are being taught this, if you're not able to try to counter this, then it's like you're facing an uphill task, because you know you will not be able to provide rational discussion arguments, and what it will look like is if you ain't got a clue, and the scientists and the teachers, they know it all, you know
Yeah.
so who are you handing your kids over to? And it is really it is frightening, man. It's really scary. And even though, bro, your kids are a bit younger, right? I was chatting to Mohammed a few days ago, and I was saying to him, listen, at some stage we need to migrate, yeah, to east. And he's like, why? And I go, look, because of X, Y, and Z. And he's like, yeah, but they're not really, it's not really causing that much issue. And I said, look, I go, okay, fair enough, right? You're at a certain age, but I said, actually, I'm not even talking about you. Because he's like, oh no, I'm not gonna fall for this. So I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the generations that will follow you. You understand? Because if what is going to come to them is going to be hardcore in regards to atheism, liberalism, and all sorts, if they can't challenge it, then you know what? So people may say that this is exaggerating, is fear mongering, whatever you want to say, right? But in a few generations' time, it wouldn't be surprised that there are a lot of people who have actually left the fold of Islam, right?
Yep.
Because of how things are going to be.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. I think just a couple of points, and just one in relation to what you're saying. One of the guys that we went on Umrah with, I don't know if you remember, I don't know if he said it in front of you, but I remember him saying, and this bro is, very, very smart guy, very smart guy. He's a lawyer as well, so you could tell, he thinks.
Yeah.
And he was brought up similar background to us, with regards to the Brailvi background, and he turned around and said that, look, I was being fed with this interpretation of Islam. And maybe I'm not going to knock all of Brailleism, but I'm just saying that there's certain aspects that are focused on that are perhaps given far too much prominence, and therefore they don't really satisfy the mind. And he said to me that, look, if that was what's being presented to Islam, and if that had persevered and I hadn't come across the correct way of thinking and the correct view on what Islam is as a deen, he said I would have apostatized, because this interpretation that's being given to me does not make sense to me. Society is there giving you an alternative view, but is basing it on evidence, right? And you're giving me these views and not giving me some evidence. You're telling me that this guy can see into the future. Where's the evidence? You're telling me this guy can cure the ill. Where's the evidence? That someone's possessed by a jinn and he's going to remove this evil spirit away. How does that make sense to the mind? You got to satisfy my mind. And this is the level that people are getting to now, that you'll see, look, when I look at my child now, I'm so surprised at how advanced he is in his thinking, right? To the point whereby, whoa, I think I'm doing something special, until I come across someone else's kids and they're at the same stage. So it's just a reflection of how the curricula, what they're watching on TV, is just expanding their mind to making them thinkers. And their minds are going to need to be satisfied when it comes to Islam as well. Otherwise, they will inevitably apostatize. So, when I do think about my kids and I'm thinking about what is the best I could give to them, man, honestly, I am just thinking about, I need to save them from the hellfire. That is my responsibility. Everything else is Allah's responsibility towards my kids. The rizq, the health, this is all going to be Allah. That's the relationship. That's Allah and my son. Yeah, my responsibility is, what do I give to him to help him, protect him from the hellfire? And that's my responsibility as a parent with regard to the way I bring him up. And the hadith, and I do this for him, but I also do it for selfish reasons as well, because the hadith says that when you die, there's only going to be three things that help you. Yeah, it's going to be sadaqah jariyah, the good knowledge that you leave behind, or the pious son who is going to pray for you. Yeah, so therefore, what does it mean to be that pious son to pray for you? Yeah, they need to understand the concept of Islam, the worship of Allah, what is required from them in order to be pious. So these 2 points about the knowledge or the way I bring up my children and what I give them now will benefit me in this life, but it's also going to benefit me in the hereafter, because we're talking about the concept of death. And this is at the forefront of my mind whenever I think about, right, when do I up his knowledge now? When do I add more? When do I build upon it? And the second thing is that only helps me if they're believing in it in the first place. So we need to be satisfying their mind. We need to get them shape their thinking in some way. And, why not have them in a situation where they go around and challenge the concept of evolution and the concept of Big Bang Theory? Even at an early age, you could teach them the questioning techniques to get them thinking, but enough to hinder the arrogance of the physics teachers and, the science teachers in saying this is the way it is. Cast doubt, to give them the confidence that actually what we have is the truth. And, let's look at ourselves, Maj, when we were younger and when we were having these debates with Jehovah's Witnesses or the Christians or, the Bible bashers, as we call them, in town. The moment that we knew that we had the strong evidence, did that not give us a confidence and a feel-good factor? The fact that, whoa, this thinking is great. This is something special. We could take.
Bro, listen, we was young kids, man, and we used to go hunting for these preachers. You know what I mean? If you think about it, again, goes to what you're saying is like, how do you know you're right? It's by way, by challenging.
Yeah.
So when we used to go down and we used to have this book where you had all the contradictions of the Bible, and you memorize a few, and you know what I mean? You'd pull up and sometimes I remember once we even played this sort of role where, we're born in a Muslim family, but we're not sure. And they said, well, come in the church, and we went to the church, and the conversation was that crazy that at the end, I remember the guy stood up, the Christian guy, and he said, if your God is real, tell him to hit me on my head with the hammer now, right? And we thought, and this guy was a grown man, right? We thought, what the heck, you know what I mean? So, job was done to a certain degree. But I think the main point is what you said, Afi. That what we talking about, and I didn't know about that bro who contemplated. I mean, the fact that he said what he did to you, that means maybe at some stage he contemplated like leaving Islam, right? Otherwise, he could never have said that to you, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is, I think it goes down to what you're saying: proof, evidence, proof. Because right now, through science, the reason why people are looked down upon who are like of any religion, for example, is why it's ridiculed is you have no proof. You have some books that are like written by man 1400, 1500, however years ago, right? And you have faith, blind faith. It is all about evidence. So if that's what it is right now, and in all honesty, if you think about it, it's not like even now. Evidence is very important. As an example, when the messengers and the prophets came to their people and they made a claim, I'm a prophet or messenger, what do the people say? Give us some evidence, right?
Yeah.
Prove it. So today it's no different. The fact that we need to prove that Islam is truth, because it's a big claim to say. Some may argue, and some people do. It's a big claim to say that there's a creator up there, and there's angels, and there's a hell, and there's a heaven. How does that link to this material world? It's like fun, it's like, so they are huge claims, right? To not be able to back these up without evidence, I think that's the key point that I think, is in regards to death, or even in regards to what you're saying, is that as Muslims, do we have the evidence to establish that Islam is the truth, that the Quran is the speech of Allah? And I think that's where all of us have to start from. That has to be our starting point.
It has to be. And, if you look at how times are going, the attack on every aspect of Islam is there. We see it, we face it. Why do you women have to cover up? Why do you guys do this? Why do you do that? Why don't you drink alcohol? And you can see why people fall victim to the peer pressure. If you at any stage of your life, right, whatever we've done, or let's think about it from the point of view of a non-Muslim, and I know it's hard, but we're gonna have to put ourselves in their mind. If someone convinced you 1,000,000% that by drinking that glass of alcohol, or that bottle of alcohol is going to cause you severe harm, would you rationally as a human being do it?
No.
You wouldn't. And this is the level of the evidence that we have. We can prove it as a matter of fact. But, in current times where we're scared to teach our kids this, or we're scared to learn it ourselves in order to teach our kids, because we're worried about, is someone going to grass us up for being an extremist, or, how is my son going to come be perceived, or my daughter going to be perceived at school? But, we need to find, I'm not saying that these aren't serious concerns, but we need to find that middle ground, to the point whereby we don't present it too emotionally, but present it intellectually, because they can then have that healthy debate with whoever they do within school. But it's not a reason to not do anything, because not doing anything and not teaching these things is going to be a disaster for you and for your children.
Yeah. And also, I think it's important to highlight that even if you go through some sort of a rational thought process and you arrive at the creator and stuff like this, right? It don't mean you're going to be an angel. You're going to have low times. You're going to sin. You don't know what extent you're going to probably go down the path of sin, right? Nevertheless, you're in a better position than you are if basically to you it was just bedtime stories that your parents told you, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you'll be more consistent. You'll even have phases in life where you might go off the rails altogether, but you know what? You're gonna feel agitated. You're never gonna feel content, right? And there's more chance of you coming back to the right path, because you, for you as an individual, as someone who has thought about these things, has arrived at something, is different when it's told to you by somebody else. And I think that's the key thing, that you need to go through that process yourself. And I think that's something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you think about it, I'm not sure about other religions, right? But I get a feeling a lot of their scriptures about you just believe. You look in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he appeals to the man's mind. Yeah, countless ayat talking about observing, proof, burhan, proof. They claim this, they have no proof. They claim this, they have no proof. They say that the angels are the daughters of Allah, they have no proof. And, to the extent where Allah even challenged them, produce something like the Quran, right, as a proof, right? So again, we all read this Quran. We all grow up at a certain stage in life. We go through it, whether it's just in Arabic, we listen to it in Taraweeh. But if we don't have like a desire in our life to actually learn our deen better, to come across these ayat that tell you to ponder and reflect, then you're not going to do that. And I think that's the biggest challenge, bro, because the reality is, there is so many distractions. There are so many distractions. And I think it even goes on a societal level, because, imagine now you're living in an Islamic state, right? Now, you are constantly, whether it's the adhan, whether it's the transactions in the market, whatever you do, right? Especially in society, there's a reminder to Islam. And you even see this where people, I think it's recently, man, who's the coach of Pakistan cricket team, the Australia, was it Matthew Hayden?
Matthew Hayden, yeah.
He was saying, like, he was talking about the adhan in, I think it was Sharjah, right? And he said that, it's like a constant reminder of God, right? And he's a non-Muslim, and he's saying that. So imagine now you're living in a society where it's constantly reminding you. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, verily reminders are beneficial for the believers. We're designed in a way we're going to go off rails, but we get reminded, we come back. Now, bro, imagine now you're living in a society where it's the complete opposite. So when you think of it like that, sometimes I feel like, you know what? It is purely down to the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have even arrived at what we have. Because why should we be any different to the other guys, man? We went through, school with Sukhjit and Marlon and we were people of color. They were people of color. We grew up with the English people, right? Okay, we went to a mosque, we got battered there. There's more abuse than anything else, right? Okay, we learned the Arabic, no doubt, respect to the teachers who taught us, but generally, didn't really learn that much. But, there wasn't that much that we were different, if you think about it. So, I think that the society plays a huge part. And I think even now, you're talking about your kids and our kids and all, and people's kids, some may argue that even if you try your best, right, you're still up against it.
You are, no doubt you are up against it. And that's why I think we've got responsibility as parents to probably get together and then make sure that our kids are growing up in an environment, and that environment, let's contain it and control it as much as we can, because you're right, the environment has a massive bearing. And unfortunately, in the past, I think the community spirit has kept people closer to it, because the stuff that was happening hidden. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on, but people were scared of making it public, because if it gets to my dad, he's going to come back and he's going to batter me. So I've got to make sure my dad doesn't find out. But now I think that community spirit is a bit fragmented. People are looking more about the area that they want, a nice area that they want to live in with schooling, catchment areas, rather than thinking actually community to protect my kids and my kids growing around Muslims is really, really important, which was definitely the thinking of our parents.
Yeah, 100%.
And sometimes I'm weighing that up in my mind. What do? Do I move out or do I stay in the community? And the community at the moment is still pulling me in, because you see those signs of where people do like go astray. And I think and I was thinking about it from our parents' point of view, with a very basic understanding of Islam, they held on to it quite strongly. And I was thinking, like, actually, it's true, because back in Pakistan, all right, there's the influence of Hinduism that they grew up in, and for generations of influence. But
yeah.
In Pakistan, in the village or wherever, you'd see there's a strong community spirit. People were being taught the same thing, and this is what everyone believed. All right, might not have been deep at the intellectual level that we're talking about, but it was the correct views on life, generally. And then it was enforced by the mosque with the calls to prayer, and the death, and the community gets involved. So that little village, that some people are knocking for being backward, actually are probably in a stronger place to stick to the essence of Islam, if you like, than what we're doing here. And I think that is a sign for me that actually protected our parents in order to give us the views that they were able to give to us. But then, for us, the task is harder. And you're right. And it comes down to that environment. That environment's going to be key.
Yeah. And bro, the thing is people talk about, whenever we talk about having the Sharia and it's important for Muslims and to live under Islam and so on, this isn't just like needed for whilst you're alive. In reality, it's even more important after you die, because one of the things that people want to escape is what's going to happen afterwards in regards to, is there accountability? You understand? And people don't really want to, especially Muslims, because we know about Jannah, Jahannam and so on. It's a case of there's an element of accountability. However, a lot of other people, they don't believe in the creator, they don't believe in the next life. So their actions, reflect this, because they will do what they feel like. But as Muslims, we have to do those things which, please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and try to stay away from those things which displease him and anger him.
Yeah.
So, you know, when it comes down to death, that issue of, you know, people are not even really, you know, I think there's a saying where Western saying like, I'm not afraid of death, but I just don't want to be there when it happens, right? So for Muslims though, it's a bit different, isn't it? So for Muslims, it's like we're not, especially when we get closer to the age, whether it's 40 plus or whatever, right? It's not so much how you're gonna die, it's more about the fear of
What's gonna happen?
What's gonna happen afterwards, man.
You're so right, man. So right, and you know, I'm just, you know, it's funny because you can't pinpoint it to a time where up until a certain age, I'm doing dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, please give me this, give me this, give me this, give me this, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm probably still doing some of that dua, but now more and more, the great emphasis is on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, please protect me from the hellfire. Because it's becoming every day that we're alive, it's just becoming a closer and closer reality. And
bro, you know, I go and pick my youngster from school, right? And you know Dale School, innit? And you know what is what's crazy is I went to that same school, and I go there. I have to wait. We have to wait in a line, and then they come out and they call you in, and yeah, a bit of COVID, like, you know, precaution stuff. But you know, I can actually recall this happened here, that happened at that part of that playground, that happened here, right? And then you think, wow, man, you know, life has gone so quick.
Like that.
So quick that I used to be at that age. I used to be one of those kids. I used to, you know, have no worries in life, right? It was a case of just, you know, getting him to the one or two cartoons that were available on TV at that time, right? Straight after school, right? Before mosque, right? We never had Cartoon Networks, right? But the point I'm saying is that now you're right. I think you're right. The longer it goes on for, and especially 40 onwards, it's like, also another example is that, you know, and was it last Eid, or I think it was last Eid, one of the days I took the kids to this trampoline place. It's like an indoor place. I don't know if you've been to that.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd join in as well, right? And the weird thing is that my mind wanted to do certain maneuvers, right?
My body says
no.
no.
My body was not responding, bro. And you know, it was hurting, bro. Thinking, whoa, you know what? This is it, man. I remember I could have just done this, I could have done that. And I think the more it goes on, you start thinking about the day you're going to be facing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is something which our culture continuously reminds us of. The, you know, not even before the day of judgment, man, you know, even before being accounted, bro, just being standing, you know, like they say, the sun's going to be above your head, you're going to be drowning, except for those in the 10 categories. 7 categories or 10 categories? Okay, whichever one it is. Let's say 10, let's go for 10. But the point is, though, is ideally we should be striving to be one of those categories that are under the shade of the throne, right? But I think that, you know, that's something which as Muslims we really need to try to, not, you can't imagine, because obviously it's something which is our imagination, but I think it's a case that it has to be a reminder, man. Death does not discriminate. Age don't matter, color don't matter, status don't matter. When it's your time, it's your time. But are we doing anything to prepare for it? And I think that's a question that we all have to ask ourselves.
And you're right. Old age shouldn't be the only reminder.
No, it can't be. Our culture is there, isn't it, from the young age, man.
And you're right. It's in everything. And you're so right. Be it the birth of a child, you know, the janaza prayer, the death, or, you know, the fraternity, the concept of brotherhood during Ramadan, and then that we do the dua that, you know, have we benefited from it, and then you're already looking forward to the next one if we're fortunate enough. So there's already these ideas that are surrounding us. And in fact, you know, there's probably more that we don't appreciate, and it's just by talking to us now. I you know, just thinking about, you know, a lot of us we if our parents are still alive, we see them in this frame of mind, preparing for the next life, where they're constantly striving to seek Allah's pleasure. So shamefully to say that, do we pray all of our sunnah? Do we do all the little things? Do we read Quran as much as we should do? But at that stage, we're seeing them do it because it's for one reason only, is for the preparation in the next life. So all of these are signs for us if we choose to pay attention to them.
But one thing I will say, bro, everything has its value, yeah? These actions, doing these actions when you're in your youth, when you feel like you can take on the world, the world, sky is the limit. When your desires, you're going rampant, right? Whether it's for wealth, whether it's for women or whatever, at that time, to be able to dedicate your life to the deen, that stage in your life holds so much more value. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the hadith says that, take advantage of your youth before old age. And this isn't just talking about, enjoy yourself, go to theme parks, go on trampolines and stuff, because there's going to be a time when you can't do it. It's talking about, when you're older, there's going to be things that you're going to find difficult to do, or you won't even be able to do, right? So in your youth, do it. Why? Because the hadith to do with take the advantage of 5 over 5, the last one is take advantage of your life before your death. So all the things that it talks about before, your health, your wealth, and all these things, right? They're all part of life. And the only way you can take advantage of your life before death is by securing the Allah's pleasure, right? Or working towards it anyway. So, it's one of those that when you're working towards, when you're young and people are, making money, and especially now with the online world and the influence and stuff like that, when we get to 40 plus and all that, alhamdulillah, if you get that far, amazing. If it occurs to you, again, amazing. And let's pray Allah forgives you for what happened before, right? But the reality is that life slows down a bit. Certain urges cool down a bit, right? You know what I'm saying? Your body's not even on the same anymore, right? So it's much easier to then focus, but the real struggle. And if you look at, subhanAllah, the earlier companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they were young, man. They were young. We talk about Tariq bin Zayd, and you talk about Muhammad bin Qasim, and you talk about Ali radiallahu anhu, and all these people, great people. They were young, man. And that's why they're remembered, because they dedicated their life, not just a part of life, you'd say, their whole life. And the first part of the life is something which is very important. And that's what one thing I would do, and I do when I speak with the youngsters, whether it's my kids, my nephews, or just youngsters. And I say, you know what? When I was your age, I probably didn't have people telling me this information like I am now, right? I understand now. But trust me, now's the time, man. This life, 50, 60, 70, people say 80, 90. Reality is, man, do you really want to live to 90 if people are going to have to change your nappies and stuff? So let's talk about a decent life. Like, just say 60, 70, you're probably still, capable, right? You want to risk eternity for 60, 70. But again, as I mentioned to you, the people who are the believers are those who believe in the al-ghaib. And this is something which, if I'm going to reinforce, is it has to come through our understanding of our deen and being convinced about Islam. And what follows it, whether our rizq is from Allah, whether our life is from Allah, and when it's going to go is up to Allah. All of these things fall into place. And I think the most important thing really is, if one message that I want to take away, and one message that I want to convey from this podcast, Safi, is that it's so important that every single one of us really question the purpose of life for ourselves. Really question, is there going to be something afterwards? Is there definitely? Because if there isn't, then I'm wasting my time. Why am I not chasing the money? Why am I not enjoying, maximizing? Because as they say, YOLO, you only live once. You know what I mean? Why am I doing all these things? Abstaining from all these other things for something which I'm not even sure whether it's going to happen. People might not say it like that, and I'm sure they don't believe that. But we've got to question ourselves. If there's a fire in front of you and you're walking towards it, to walk into it, how do you actually believe that's a hologram, or do you believe that's a fire? Even though you might acknowledge there's a fire there. So the reality is, yeah, we acknowledge all these things, but then our behavior also shows something as well, doesn't it?
You're right, man. And, you know, I remember throughout life, at some stages where I did question whether, you know, there is going to be a heaven and a hell. Does Allah really exist? Did Muhammad Sallallahu ever exist? Is the Quran his word, or did someone else write it? So these thoughts do come into your head. And just as, like, you know, throughout life, your thoughts will come into your head, whether there will be a hereafter, or, you know, what was there before life? Where did the world come from? So, you know, these thoughts are going to be there. And even if they're there as doubts that creep in now and then, they will impact the confidence and the conviction you have in the correct ideas. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and therefore, because it's going to impact that conviction, you are going to be impacted, influenced by the other ideas, because you haven't got full confidence in this other idea, or full conviction in this other idea that you believe in. So you're right, you know, you have to be convinced, you know, and there's different levels of conviction. We're not saying you have to understand it the way we do.
Yeah,
you
sure.
know, the examples of the existence of a creator that previous scholars have given are deep. You know, they're enough to convince everyone. So you don't have to go through, you know, everything in the world is limited, and therefore what's the origin of creation, and, you know, where's its dependency. You don't have to go to that level if for you the level of conviction is enough with the other examples, right? So there are different levels of example, but the crux of the matter is, like what you said, you have to be convinced. If you're not convinced, go and talk to people, you know, message into you. Let's have that debate, let's have that discussion, let's help each other as Muslims, because we can't just assume that just because we get it, other people are going to get it as well. So we have to make sure that people are convinced at the level that satisfies their minds. The other thing I think I would add is, you know, for those people who are perhaps our age, at a certain or older, and they're there already, they've got the conviction by default because they're scared about what's going to happen in the next life. We've got a responsibility to make sure we're preparing the future generations as well, because unless you prepare and we lay the foundation, they're going to be having the same conversations that we're having here now, if they're lucky.
Yeah, no. That's some very important points and some good advice, and actually making us aware of the challenges that, you know, we're gonna have. So going back to the case of freezing people and stuff like that. Look, people they just don't want to accept the reality. They're willing to go to any lengths just to avoid, you know, acknowledging that, you know, there's that they will stand in front of the creator on stage. But as Muslims, you know, we got to understand that, you know, death is something which is part and parcel of life. You know, let's not start, you know, getting influenced by people, you know, certainly living in Western societies where we don't want to talk about death, you know, or even Indian movies when, you know, you might just say to your family, like, you know, if I don't come back, and then, nahi, you know, don't say these words. It's like, look, it's a reality, man. You know, and I think that's what it is, man. That really we have to look at the hadith when the Prophet ﷺ said that, you know, this life is just like a journey, you know, and the person in it is just like a person on a journey, and the life is equivalent to him, you know, having taken rest under the shade of a tree, and then getting back on the journey. And I think that is it. And whether it's someone listening to this who's in there, you know, who's 15 or 60 or 80 or whatever, you speak to someone who's 80, and one thing they will tell you is, my life went, you know, so quick. It went like a blink of an eye. So, you know, you speak to someone who's 20 nowadays, and they'll say, my life went as quick as a blink of an eye. So, you know, let's start working towards the thing which is definitely going to happen. 100%. 100%. And all of us have been to enough janazas to see that it's just the body, right? It's not even a person anymore. It's not like, Jabbar, or it's just, are they, are they lowering the body, right?
Yeah.
Because that's it. You're just an empty carcass, and you see, it's just a white cloth. That person could have had so many properties, so many, cars and all that. None of it is going with him. So, let's wake up, man. Let's wake up whilst we can, before it's too late, man. And not just, I'm not just even talking about death, bro. I'm talking about, maybe being put in a situation where you come down with some sort of an illness, you get hit by a car, you become, paralyzed or whatever, and then you wish that you did those things to please your Lord, which you can do now in full health. You know what I'm trying to say? Let's not be from amongst those who are regretting, man. And that's it, really, bro. I feel it was a really interesting discussion, bro. And I hope it has benefited people out there. I don't know if you got any final thoughts that you want to share with the with the listeners.
I think sorry, man, I'm getting loads of messages on Telegram, so I'm trying to mute it so that you can't hear the beeping. So
No problem, man, no problem.
But I think one thing that I'm just going to finish on is, there's at least when you're alive, you've got the opportunity to reflect and do something about it.
True.
Be it you got 1 day left, you got a year left, 10, 20, 30, whatever, you've got an opportunity to do something about it and hope you can redeem it. Once you're dead, there is no redemption. You can't say, and we're going to want to come back and fix it, but we can't. And we don't know when that death's going to come. So these are the facts. And therefore we can't get complacent. We've seen children, we've seen babies die, we've seen young children get an illness and die, we've seen people throughout our life, our ages die. I remember kids at school dying, I remember people at college dying, I remember people at university dying. So it's going to happen, and we don't know when it's going to come. So therefore the complacency can't kick in. And I think when it comes down to the corruptness out there, the alternative view, I was looking for the most appropriate time to mention this. Maybe it's now. It just reminded me of a quote I saw of Ahmadinejad. May Allah be pleased with him, right? Where an atheist says to him, "How are you going to feel when you die and there's nothing?" And Ahmadinejad turned around and go, "Well, not as bad as when you die and you realize there is something."
Subhanallah, that's so true, isn't it, man? Yeah, no, Jazakallah, bro. Jazakallah. Really some thought-provoking stuff. And hopefully, like I said, it's certainly benefited me just having this chat with you and sort of reflecting. Likewise. And and hopefully it's benefited everyone at home as well, or wherever you are listening to this podcast. So yeah, first of all, bro, big Jazakallah ahead for coming on the show. No, it's always a pleasure. And for everyone listening, as you know, the podcast is available on all popular podcast platforms and on my YouTube channel, Path to Revival. And please, if you have found this beneficial, share it with family and friends. On that note, inshallah, bro, hopefully I will see you on the next one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Yeah, man, inshallah, if we're still alive.
Inshallah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.